Digital IDs linked to a social credit score, a massive database, and a programmable centralized digital currency could be a reality by 2030. According to the UN's Agenda 2030, providing a legal identity for all and a digital public infrastructure is essential to achieve peace, inclusivity, and justice. And to that end, the United Nations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and partners of the Rockefeller Foundation have recently launched their 50 in 5 campaign to accelerate digital public infrastructure. The aim is to facilitate digital ID, digital payments like central bank digital currencies, and data sharing rollouts in 50 countries in 5 years' time, or by 2028. Now, the digital public infrastructure, or DPI, is an all-inclusive phrase for a technocratic governance system powered by 3 main components: digital ID, digital payments, and massive data sharing. Now, DPI is being pitched as a mechanism for financial inclusion, convenience, improved healthcare, safety and security, and to progress an environmentally green agenda. But my next guest says it's all part of an Orwellian plan to exercise control and shape a dystopian future by what he calls the Controligarchs. Seamus Bruner details all of this in his latest book, Controligarchs: Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. Over 110 countries are in active stages of developing a central bank digital currency. And as we've just run through, the agenda to get a digital ID is very, very far ahead. I'm just seeing the Philippines, for example, issued digital IDs for 76 million citizens. So it's underway. It's underway in terms of digital IDs. Developing a central bank digital currency is underway. And the link of using the two together to control people is still not something that is, widely seen as the likely outcome. How is this being pitched to people? Like, how is this being sold in terms of people wanting to opt in? We discussed the universal basic income as one of the incentives. What are the other ways that authorities are trying to make citizens volunteer to do this or think that it'll be beneficial to them?
Well, it's usually one of 3 ways or all 3 ways, and it's safety, security, and convenience. And, combined, those are 3 good reasons to do some things. This is for your safety and security and your convenience. I mean, it's shocking the number of things that you'll do just for convenience. Turning over your biometric data to clear to fly, to save some time in line. It's not that there's anything wrong with that, but you can totally see why people would want to do it, to save some time, to save some money. And of course, safety is a big one. This will protect you in some way. And then with the universal basic income, of course, for cash, you can pay somebody. So that kind of falls under convenience. Mm-hmm. The security one on the CBDCs is like, we really need to lock down terrorism. We got to make sure that we can freeze the terrorists' money. That one's falls under safety or security. That was one of the examples they used in this war game exercise. The collapse of the financial system, ironically, the banks who precipitate previous global financial crises are saying that, in order, we must get what we want or the system will collapse. It's like, maybe you should be investigated.
So again, the book focuses on some of the billionaires and their power and how they use this to push the agenda. And you go through the various billionaires and their links. But as I said, there was a big focus on Bill Gates in particular. What is his connection? And asking you to peer into the mind of Bill Gates, why is Bill Gates pushing for this digital ID? Why is he trying to take over America's farmland? Why is he pushing for fake meat? What do you think? And again, asking you to read into his mind here, is the drive behind his desire to do this?
Well, the simple and most obvious explanation is money. Before he set up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in the mid 90s and very early 2000s, he was not a philanthropist at all. He was actually against charity. He never gave money, or according to biographies and even his own father's, memoir. And it was his mother really pressured Bill Gates to become to give some of this money. He was making so much money. He was the richest man in the entire world for like 20 of the past 30 years. And his mother implored him to give away money. He still wouldn't do it. And she died in the mid 90s. And that's right around the time he sets up his foundation. He used the Rockefellers as a prototype. So I get into the Rockefellers. Most people don't really, you think of Rockefeller, you think of Standard Oil. They're kind of these billionaires of the past. You don't really think about them that much anymore, but they're actually very central. And they were this prototype that Bill Gates has modeled his entire existence after, really. And what happened with the Rockefellers is instructive, because the Standard Oil got into trouble with antitrust regulators. It was a trust, it was a monopoly, and it needed to be broken up. That was when the Rockefeller Foundation was founded. They set up this foundation. And they went from being these cutthroat monopolists to being the greatest philanthropists of the 20th century. So Bill Gates, it's uncanny really how similar the story is. Microsoft gets into trouble with antitrust regulators in the mid 1990s. And that's when Bill Gates goes from being this cutthroat software monopolist into being a great philanthropist. Now, over the course of the 20th century, the Rockefellers realized that actually you could make a lot more money through philanthropy. And even more important than money, you could gather control over key industries, and healthcare is a big one. Bill Gates has done the same thing. So for every dollar, we calculated this and put it in the book, for every dollar he gives away, he really gets $2 in return. And it's by funding, white papers that say that climate change is going to, that cows are going to, create more global warming. And that's why we need alternative proteins, and same thing with the energy. So, the simplest explanation is it's about money, but controlling industries leads to a lot of money. And when you see some of the comments that these guys have, it's a God complex. I mean, they, with the food, they think that they can make a better cow in a lab somehow. They think that they can create life extension products with the mRNA technologies. I mean, mRNA, Bill Gates was funding long before the pandemic. And really, if you look at the founder of Moderna and the chief science officer, there's a great TED talk he gives on YouTube about what mRNA can do. It can, it's anti-aging type applications. So I think that's the thing that maybe unites all of us is our fear of death, most of us. And so they're afraid of dying. So that's a big part of it, of his scientific endeavors. And then with the transhumanism and the artificial intelligence and the OpenAI, Microsoft was the largest backer of OpenAI. That's also sort of having to do with life extension and merging man with machine. It's really, really sort of dystopian stuff. And you always thought of it as far off in the future, the singularity. I mean, the singularity, if those who haven't heard of it, is when man and machine merge. It was set to be 2050, according to Google's Ray Kurzweil, but it's been bumped up to 2040, and it's probably going to happen in most of our lifetimes. I mean, what that exactly means, we don't know, but it doesn't look good, except for people like Bill Gates.
Yeah. Again, the book highlights a lot of threats in a dystopian future, as you put it, but backs it up with tremendous research, and it doesn't seem that far off at all. Now, we've just discussed how a digital ID is happening. Whether we like it or not, it is happening in the EU, it's happening around the world, it's happening in the US already to some degree. And we've discussed how a digital ID linked to a central bank digital currency is probably the next step. And a central bank digital currency and a digital ID linked to a social credit score is a way to, control behavior. Now, we've discussed on the show how, whilst you may not be able to prevent a digital ID, you can, in a way, opt out of the system or find a way to operate outside the system to a degree using gold and Bitcoin, Bitcoin being decentralized. and that it allows for, to some degree at least, independence when it comes to money as a unit of exchange and as a store of value. What are your thoughts on that? Do you see gold and or Bitcoin as a hedge against this future, at least in terms of independence when it comes to controlling your wealth and money?